Well, hello there, and welcome to I don't remember what episode number this is. Welcome to Spilling the Tea.
I couldn't tell you either because we've had a little bit of a break between spring break and other things going on. So,
Yes, so we both took some time to go see the eclipse recently.
yeah,
Both of us in Ohio.
yeah, I went to Cuyahoga National Park. We kind of did it fairly spur of the moment almost and went, I taught my morning class on Monday and then drove home. We had a cooler loaded with everything and we
Got in the car
got in
and
the
went.
car and we went and called the national park on the way to see how crowded it was, if there was good space to go there, and if the weather was good.
Yeah. So we planned in advance because we were not going to miss this. It was a bucket list thing for us. So um, Patrick and I and his parents rented a house out in Cleveland, and we stayed there for a couple of days leading up to the eclipse, just because if you're going to drive out there, you might as well stay.
Yep,
And
yep.
we just watched from the front yard of the house, and it was great. Couldn't ask for better
You
weather.
you were in the totality
I was
area.
in the
Why
totality zone.
why go anywhere else? I mean,
Exactly.
because
All we had to
otherwise
do
it
was,
would have been crowds, right?
right, we just had to go outside and look up.
Yeah,
So it was awesome.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we ended up when I talked to the ranger, there was sort of the bigger area, in the park with lots and lots of parking and everything. And they still had parking left. They said overflow parking and everything. And she said to me, she said, that's where the big eclipse party will be. And she said, there are smaller areas as well that won't be completely parked and you'll have fewer people. So it depends on if you want the
Right.
big sort of eclipse party or the small. And so we opted for the smaller thing, partly even thinking, when we leave after the eclipse, we really didn't want to hit too much
Yes.
traffic.
You don't want to be stuck there. Yeah. Did our timer go off?
It's almost. We got
Almost.
another
Okay.
minute. We're waiting for our tea to steep here. So today's tea is a tea by a company called The Art of Tea,
Okay.
and it's called Big Sur, S-U-R, like California, right? The
Okay.
Big Sur in California.
Not Big Sur like Abraham Lincoln.
No, 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 no. Big Sur in California. And it is a cream Earl Grey with mint. And it has both spearmint and peppermint in it. It actually, it's funny because I think my wife kind of found this tea. She's she was looking for, she knows I like Earl Grey,
Right.
and she was kind of looking for that perfect Earl Grey.
Well, it smells really good.
Yeah, it has a really nice
And
odor to it. And there goes our
there goes our
there
timer.
goes our timer. So we can just
Drain our
get
tea.
rid of our tea bags.
Now, are you a squeezer?
I usually do not.
I'm also not a squeezer.
Yeah, I feel like that will put some bitterness into it. If I
Yeah.
squeeze it, you'll get, you know,
Thank you.
too many of the tannins and you'll get bitterness in the tea. So I try to avoid that. Now, I do tend to put a little bit of milk in this. You might want to try it without milk because different people like to drink their tea different
Yeah.
ways. Could you hand me the
Oh,
milk out of the
course, yes.
fridge? It's just, yeah, right there.
Ah, convenient.
Yeah. So
And then I was
I'm gonna
stirring
put,
because we both put some sugar in this
yeah,
too.
I'm gonna put a little bit of milk in mine
I
and
think
then
I'll try it too.
you can decide. And
Little splash, since it's a cream of Earl Grey.
yeah, the Earl Grey cream thing with mint. And I felt like, I always feel like just the tiny bit, I put a tiny bit of sugar in it. I just think it brings out the flavor nicely.
It smells like an Earl Grey, but there is definitely that note of cream of like a vanilla y or a milky note before I added the milk, and now I'm smelling it
Yeah,
more.
and you said before we even steeped the tea that the tea itself kind of had a licoricey smell, huh?
Yeah, and you said there wasn't licorice in it, but you thought it was a combination of some of the flavors.
I think it's the bergamot and the
Yes.
mint together that kind of give you that
The smell that's
smell.
reminiscent of liquor.
Yeah, because I hadn't really thought of, but there's no anise or anything like that in it,
Yeah,
or, fennel or anise or anything like that. And so you know, I think that smell is just
yeah.
from the mint and the
So if
Earl Grey,
anybody's
the
looking
bergamot.
at my spoon here, this is a little spoon that's meant to sit on your cup and balance there. It's a little mermaid, and she just sits there.
I like the spoon overall. I think it's a good
It's a
spoon.
convenient little
I
spoon.
like the color of the spoon itself
Yeah,
too. Like
it's
it has
that
a very nice,
anodized metal kind of
yeah,
look
yeah, I
to it.
like that.
But yeah, she just sits there. She just hangs out, looking festive, I guess. I don't know. Are mermaids a springtime thing?
I think so, I would say.
I mean, I tend to think of mermaids as a like Russian and Eastern European folklore
Yeah.
creature, and they do tend to be like while it's still cold, like it's not mermaid season when it's hot and sunny and everyone wants to go in the water. It's mermaid season when they're gonna drown you and it's cold, but there's still a little bit of frost
When
hanging
they're gonna
around.
drown you.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're gonna drown you. They don't mess around. And it's very hot still.
Yeah, the tea. I mean, you steep it with boiling water, so
Yeah, that's still pretty hot.
it stays pretty hot for a little while. So I was thinking about, is there any news? Do we have any other news other than the eclipse? I mean, what was your experience of the eclipse itself? How about
Well,
that?
the experience of the eclipse was one of those kind of once in a lifetime memories. All I can think about is when can I go find another one to go see? I might become an eclipse chaser because it was probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
I felt very much the same way. It was kind of this, the totality is this indescribable sort of experience of beauty and just it's amazing. I mean, it really was amazing. And I thought the same thing. And I mean, it's really funny that you say that because what I did is afterwards, I was looking at the next US eclipses in 20 and 21 years.
Yes.
And that's a long time away, right? But I saw the one in 20 years, 21 years. The one in 20 years is very limited, like Montana and North Dakota are going to
Yeah.
get some of it. But in 21 years, it's going to go all the way across the country from Northern California down through Florida.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and it goes through an area in Northern California that I've been to a number of times when I lived in Oregon. And it's Jedediah Smith State Park, and there's a grove of redwoods and the Smith River. And I thought, boy, like
Wouldn't that be
floating on
lovely?
an inner tube or a raft in that river under the redwoods
And
and
watching the
watching the
eclipse.
eclipse
Oh
would be
boy,
amazing.
that would be amazing. Yeah, I'm starting to consider eclipse cruises
Yeah.
in the future. But so if anybody's never seen a total solar eclipse or you didn't get the chance to go and view this one, what would you say you noticed? Like what phenomena did you see in the sky? What phenomena did you notice around you, maybe with your other senses besides vision?
So it it hit sort of a darkness, but almost an odd, eerie sort of darkness, kind of like in some ways it seemed like there was a sunset all around you almost.
Yes, no matter which way you turned, instead of it just being only in the west, it looked like the red, orange, yellowy glow of sunset in a ring at the horizon.
All around you. And that was amazing, I
And
thought.
then the sky inside the circle of the eclipse, the whole area leading up to the horizon was that inky, dark, violet, black, blue that the night sky usually is.
And I noticed, like when I looked up, I noticed one planet that was very prominent, which was Venus.
Yes.
And it was down to the right of the sun and the moon.
Yes.
Right. And it looked, when I looked, I was like, wow, it looked very blue in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looked to me like it had a ring around it, but I think that was like some cirrus clouds creating that
Maybe.
effect, maybe, because I know it doesn't have
A ring.
any ring.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything that would create that effect.
Right.
So Venus couldn't possibly have a ring. So I really think it was some of the wispy clouds that were around.
Yeah, we saw all 5 of the naked eye visible planets
Did you?
during totality because we knew which direction to look for them. So we looked it up in advance to figure out where they would be, and we were able to see 5 of them.
Okay, but Venus and Mercury were kind of right there in a line.
Yeah, Mercury
Down to the
was
right.
incredibly close to the sun, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
And Jupiter was, if you drew a straight line going from Venus, Mercury, and the sun and moon and kept on going, it was on the other side, on what would have been, if you were watching the eclipse, it would have been to the left and above.
And above, yeah. To the left and above.
So that was, as far as seeing the stars and planets, I didn't see a whole lot of stars, but I did see the planets.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of stars really either, although I think the place we were was fairly dark. There was one little area that as it got dark, there was like a covered picnic table, but it was kind of on the other side of the parking lot from where we were, but the lights did come on.
Yes,
because they automatically come on
in our neighborhood where we were staying as
so
well.
it automatically came on, but it was fairly dark where we were at the national park, so that was kind of nice.
Yeah, I kind of wish the street lights hadn't come on, but on the other hand, we had a nice experience that there was a church in the neighborhood where we were staying, and a bunch of people were watching the eclipse in the church parking lot, and someone was singing the whole time with over a loudspeaker. So we had music. So that was kind of really cool to have, someone singing during the eclipse. I guess you could bring your radio, but it was nice. It was live, and it was just a cappella. It was probably just one of the people who was a member of the church, but it's quite nice. And
there were probably, where we were, I think there were probably about, let's say, somewhere between 30 and maybe 50 people in this huge area of lawn, like lush green lawn there, actually. And it was a really big area. So people were really spread out. Nobody was like right on top of each other at all. And it was nice. And it was funny because after the totality, when you got sort of the diamond ring and then you had to look away from the sun or put your eclipse glasses back on, everybody clapped. So it was kind of a funny thing.
Oh yeah, we were all clapping and cheering that the sun came back.
It was funny, but
but it was what was kind of nice is I think someone started a timer when the totality started so that we would know when to put our glasses back on, because I heard someone yell, "Glasses on!" And just as I hear someone yell that, I'm fumbling to put my glasses back on, and that's when I saw like the last big flash of what I guess was Bailey's beads or the diamond ring effect.
Yeah, and that's what so it's called different things, but I saw that diamond ring effect, and I knew that was the
Yeah,
time I had to look away. I
yeah.
mean, you see it, and then you realize, uh-oh, it's gonna
Yeah,
be
you want to keep watching that, but there's no more of that to be seen. It only lasts
it
for a
doesn't,
second.
right, because then you're gonna be have direct sun in your eyes, which is no good. So
Right.
you do have to be cautious with the totality. But I did notice one of the interesting things I thought is, when you have the eclipse glasses on and you're watching it toward the end as it's getting, a smaller and smaller sliver of light, it goes completely out, and it's the
Yeah.
totality. Plus, it really darkened. Everything
Yes.
just it like darkened, and where we were, it darkened and the wind kicked up and it really
Yes.
got kind of cold.
Yeah, so the wind picked up, and I had read that it was going to, but I didn't expect it to be as much of an effect as there actually was.
I'm not certain if that was an effect of the eclipse, but it could well have been, because the sudden cooling of the air could create,
Yes. Yeah.
could end up creating that. And it seemed like it did, because it happened right at that moment. It was like it got
Yeah.
dark, and then within a few seconds, the wind was kicking up and it had
Yeah.
cooled. And so I think the cooling of the air,
Was
created maybe a
causing,
shift in air
yeah.
pressure, and it started to move.
And I also noticed that as it was getting darker and darker leading up to totality, the birds in the neighborhood all went to the trees and started roosting, and they were doing their squawking and chirping that they do at nighttime.
Right, right.
And when the sun came back, they started singing like it was morning again. In fact, I think Patrick said he saw 8 hawks hunting in the backyard, just like descending on all these little songbirds like they do at dawn.
Yeah, because it was, I mean, the eclipse, in a way, you can think of it, it's like the sun setting almost
Yeah,
and rising again, all within this short period of time, where you have a sunset and a sunrise. But it's not really like that either. There's no way to fully describe it without experiencing it, I think.
it was like somebody turning on a dimmer switch, I would say, more than a sunrise and sunset, because sunrise and sunset usually comes with like the color changes in the sky and
Right,
things, and that
right,
didn't happen.
right.
It was just like clouds being more and more overcast or something, or a dimmer switch on a light bulb, because it got so dim and so dark, and like colors looked odd if you were looking
They did.
around you without your glasses on, and my eyes couldn't adjust as fast as the light conditions were changing. So I sort of had this like dazed feeling that you would get like if you suddenly step out into a brightly lit hallway
Yeah,
after you've been in a dark room.
yeah.
And I also really thought it was amazing seeing the prominences and the solar activity.
Yeah,
I didn't know how much of that we were going to see, but there was that little pink bright area around the bottom of the sun, and I
yeah.
thought that was like a flare or
It
something.
looked kind of bright red to me, and it was an ejection occurring from the corona right there. Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know if it was actually a coronal mass ejection, although they were conjecturing about that on the news later when
yeah.
we were watching the news. So if that's what we saw, that's kind of cool because you
Well,
don't
it's
get to see
it's
that.
it's funny, because my friend, who has super camera equipment and takes all these great photos, got fantastic photos of it. And he went to South Carolina for the 2017 one.
Yeah.
So he had photos of that, and it's funny because he posted the photos of the new one, and then he pulled those back and reposted on Facebook
Yeah,
the photos of the
amazing.
2017 one. And it didn't seem like there were any of those effects in the 2017 one, or not prominent like that anyway.
Well, this was a year for solar maximum in the sun cycle, like with the sunspots and solar
Right.
activity. This would have been really close to the high point for a 20-year cycle. So it was a particularly exciting event for people who study the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know Cynthia, our dean, of course.
Yes.
Cynthia, I mean, she teaches astronomy. How much more interest could she have in this? And I know
Well, she
she
went,
went to Ohio as well.
yes, she was in Ohio as well.
So a lot of us over here in the science and math area, I think, did end up going to see the totality. We really wanted to see it. For me, I mean, I thought it was an amazing, incredible thing. And, you know, I've been around for 63 years on this planet now, and so it was just one of those major experiences. I mean, I will never forget
Yeah. I,
this. It's not like just looking through the glasses. It's when you can take them off, and kind of the experience from that, for that totality, is really incredibly amazing.
yeah, I knew that I was going to be excited about this. I mean, this was a bucket list item for me, but I, I guess I just thought that the pictures were always better than reality, because for a lot of things in astronomy, pictures are better than what you would see. And I was shocked that it was more beautiful than the pictures.
I think I think, one of the things that happens when you're in a natural setting and an event like this, I think that pictures can never capture the experience. And
It's true.
that's the whole thing. So because I don't think I expected the experience to be sort of as profound as it was for
Oh,
me.
yeah, I didn't think
So
I was gonna have like welling up of emotion, but I did. I was choked up. I had a lump in my throat like the rest of the day. I just couldn't believe what I had seen and the beauty of it. And it really, it's the sort of thing that would put your life in a different perspective if you allow yourself to think that way. Some people are more open to, that sort of thing.
yeah,
I think
I think
if you
that's
are open to it,
I
I
think
think it would
that's
be life
definitely,
changing.
yeah, I think that's definitely true. And it's funny because, my son said the site at totality was amazing, unbeatable, no experience of beauty to compare it to. You can't compare it. There isn't anything else you can compare this experience to, really. I mean, I don't find, and I think that's part of what is so profound and amazing about it. And I thought the way he described it, he's kind of saying it's indescribable, but his description was pretty apt.
And no, I think you're right. There are not a whole lot of things in our lives that we experience that we don't have a frame of reference to compare them to something else.
Right,
And a
right,
total solar eclipse is one of those few experiences you can have where there isn't an immediate thing you can grasp at to compare it with.
right, right.
And I know I heard that there were like weddings that taking place in public parks during the eclipse and stuff. And yeah, honestly, I can see why, because it was romantic in a way.
it's it's almost like the union of the sun and the moon.
Maybe the sun and moon got married.
And it's, well, one of the things that Mary Beth, my wife, said, she was talking about how really in Native American culture that they go inside. They don't go out for these eclipses because they believe it's sort of like a communication between the sun and the moon.
And that, like, it's not their business.
Right. Yeah. It's their
That's
respect for
interesting.
nature is that, and you know, that isn't my view of it necessarily, right? I mean,
Right.
culturally, that isn't my view, but I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. And I know there's people that have all sorts of superstitions and things like that, that they're afraid that if they go out, they'll go blind or whatever, but
Right.
the scientist in me just couldn't miss it.
Me either. Me either. That it really. So I'm glad that I made it. So what do you think of the tea so far?
This is lovely. It's so smooth.
It really is. I mean, that's one of the things I like about it. I think with the mint, something about adding the mint, it's a cream Earl Grey with mint. It's really smooth. There really is like no bitterness to this tea, I feel
No,
like.
there's
And I
none.
steep it for 4 minutes. If you go a little longer, you still don't get bitterness because I've oversteeped this and it's still very good. I mean, I've steeped it over 5 and
And I'm not a huge mint fan, but the weird thing is the mint doesn't read as mint to my palate.
no, but it adds something to
It
this
it adds
tea.
something that changes it from a straight up Earl Grey with just the bergamot oil in it, and it brings out a citrusiness and a licoriciness, and it mellows the tea so that it's not so tannic and astringent.
Yeah.
It's
This,
so smooth.
like I say, this is one of my favorite teas. It's Art of tea is kind of expensive, so I'm not going to say it isn't, but this is one that I buy regularly. You know, I buy like a big bag and I fill my jar over there, right? And it lasts quite a while, but it's a
It's a
fairly
pricier one.
expensive tea, so it's not your dollar tea thing,
It's not Dollar Tea Club tea.
but it's
Maybe that's why we like it and we didn't like most of the Dollar Tea Club teas. We stopped reviewing them because they weren't good.
I think the first one we did was pretty good. We reviewed
Yeah,
that. It was
the Niagara Ice wine was
yeah, I
good.
liked that one.
And I tried one on my own without you that was called Pink Rose Chateau. And I liked it a lot and I would have bought it. But when I went to their website, they didn't have it anymore.
Oh,
I'm like, how did you send me a sample of this if you don't sell it? Where did it come from?
anyway, we're gonna have to wrap up because I've got to get to class. But
Yeah,
anyway,
nice chatting about the eclipse and having a cup of tea with you.
yeah.
And I hope everybody else is having a great week. Don't really have much news, but
Hope everybody at least got to witness some of the eclipse, and we will see you next time.
have a terrific day, everyone.